The congressional hearing room felt different that morning, tense, almost electric. Reporters whispered across rows of cameras, waiting for the moment everyone had been warned about. Representative Thomas Massie walked in, his stack of documents tucked neatly under his arm. Behind him, aides moved quickly, exchanging nervous glances. They knew something explosive was about to happen. When Massie took his seat, he didn't rush. He adjusted the microphone, scanned the faces of his colleagues, and then fixed his eyes on Kash Patel, seated directly opposite. Patel looked calm on the surface, but his pen tapped rhythmically against the table, a small tell that not everyone noticed, but Massie did. "Mr. Patel," Massie began slowly, his voice echoing to the chamber, "you've been an advocate for transparency within the Bureau. You've told the American people that no one is above accountability. I respect that. But today I need to ask, what happens when transparency threatens to expose the most powerful people in this country?" The words hung in the air like a blade. Cameras zoomed in. Patel shifted slightly, a faint tightening in his jaw. Massie continued, "You've claimed the Bureau followed every lead in the Epstein investigation. You've testified that there was no list, no hidden documents, no protected names. I have evidence suggesting otherwise." He reached for a folder marked only with the word classified. Slowly, deliberately, he opened it. Pages rustled. Microphones picked it up. "These," Massie said, holding up the papers, "are names. 20 of them, all confirmed associates of Epstein, all previously redacted or concealed. These names include senators, business executives, and at least one former intelligence director. So I'll ask again, Mr. Patel, are you telling this committee that the Bureau had no knowledge of this?" Patel swallowed. The room went dead silent. Reporters froze in mid-type. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to fade. "Congressman," Patel replied finally, "some of those materials were never meant for public release. They involve sensitive." Massie cut him off sharply. "Sensitive or inconvenient? Because there's a difference." A wave of murmurs rippled across the chamber. Patel's face hardened. "You're walking a dangerous line, Congressman," he said quietly. "National security is not a talking point for television." Massie leaned forward, eyes locked on him. "Neither is corruption, but it is my job to expose it." The tension was unbearable now. Cameras flashed, capturing every twitch, every glance. Patel exhaled slowly, realizing that this wasn't just another hearing. It was a public reckoning. Massie straightened his papers. "Let's make one thing clear," he said. "I didn't come here to play politics. I came here to uncover why certain people were shielded while victims were silenced. The Bureau has had years to act. You didn't, so I did." Patel's pen stopped tapping. His silence spoke volumes. In that moment, everyone in the room, from the aides to the viewers at home, understood one thing. This was no longer just a hearing. It was the beginning of a political earthquake. The moment Representative Massie closed his folder, the room seemed to lose its air. The hum of cameras, the faint whispering of reporters, it all fell into a deep, uneasy quiet. Kash Patel knew that any wrong word could be replayed across every network within minutes. He cleared his throat, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Congressman Massie," he began carefully, "with all due respect, the material you're referring to comes from an ongoing intelligence review. You're jeopardizing multiple investigations by revealing those names publicly." Massie leaned forward, unflinching. "Mr. Patel, you're not protecting investigations. You're protecting people. There's a difference." The room erupted in low murmurs. One senator turned to another and whispered, "He's going for the throat." Patel straightened his tie. "I'm protecting national security," he replied firmly. "This list, if it's even verified, includes individuals whose roles in government and defense are critical. You can't just throw that into the public sphere for political theater." Massie's voice rose slightly, cutting through Patel's defense like a blade. "Political theater? You call this theater? Tell that to the victims who've been waiting decades for answers while the Bureau played politics with justice." The words hit like thunder. Patel froze. His team behind him shuffled papers nervously, unsure whether to intervene. Massie continued, pressing harder. You testified under oath, that no list existed. Yet here it is, in front of Congress, authenticated by internal communication logs from your own agency. Would you like me to read the timestamp? Patel's hands clenched into fists beneath the table. Those files were not meant. For who, Mr. Patel? Massie interrupted, voice booming. Not meant for the people? Not meant for Congress? Or not meant for anyone outside the club of those who think they're untouchable? A camera light blinked red. Live broadcast. Millions were watching. Social media feed began to flood with clips. Massie versus Patel live. He's done for. Hashtag Epstein list. Patel exhaled through his nose, struggling to stay composed. Congressman, I've spent my entire career defending this nation. You don't get to question my integrity because you want headlines. Massie's tone softened, dangerously calm now. Integrity isn't questioned by words, Mr. Patel. It's revealed by actions. And right now, your actions suggest a man more loyal to secrecy than truth. The room went silent again. Patel looked around, realizing even his allies were avoiding eye contact. The committee chair tapped her pen nervously, but didn't interrupt. Massie leaned closer to the mic. You see, the people watching don't care about bureaucratic language. They care about accountability. And you, representing one of the most powerful institutions in this country, have shown them exactly why they don't trust it anymore. Patel's voice broke slightly as he tried to recover. The Bureau does not operate under public opinion. We operate under the law. Massie didn't blink. Then perhaps the law should start operating under the truth. Gasps filled the room. That line would become the most replayed quote of the day. Reporters scribbled furiously. One even whispered, "That's the headline." As the hearing adjourned, Patel didn't wait for photographers. He stood, straightened his jacket, and walked out to a side door expressionless but clearly shaken. Outside, flashes of light followed him. Questions shouted from every direction. Mr. Patel, do you still deny the existence of the Epstein list? Will you resign? Did the Bureau hide names from Congress? He said nothing. Inside, Massie gathered his papers and spoke quietly to an aide. This isn't over. Tomorrow we release the files. The aide nodded, pale. Sir, that could end his career. Massie glanced back toward the now empty witness chair. No, he said firmly. His choices already did. The next morning, the world woke up to chaos. News outlets ran the same headline in different tones. Massie drops bombshell. On every network. Clips from the hearing replayed on a loop. Massie's cold stare. Patel's nervous pause. The phrase not meant for the public. By 9 a.m., millions were watching the live stream of the follow-up press conference. The air outside the Capitol was heavy with tension. Dozens of microphones pointed toward a simple wooden podium draped with the congressional seal. When Thomas Massie stepped forward, flashes exploded from every direction. His tone was calm, almost surgical. Yesterday, he began, we revealed that the Bureau was aware of a list connected to the Epstein investigation that was kept from Congress and from the American people. Today, I will confirm what that list contains. He unfolded a single sheet of paper, the camera zooming in so close that the reflection of the text shimmered on his glasses. I will not read every name, he said, but I will confirm that 20 individuals, all powerful, all influential, were shielded by those meant to protect justice itself. This is no longer a rumor. It's evidence. Reporters shouted questions. Congressman, can you confirm if these include current officials? Massie paused. Yes, several are still serving. That was it. The crowd exploded. The words "still serving" echoed across social media within seconds. Every political podcast, every talk show, every news anchor wanted one thing, the list. But Massie didn't read it aloud. He held it up and continued. These names will be handed over to the Oversight Committee and made public within 24 hours. The people deserve transparency, not protectionism. No more redactions. No more excuses. Behind the scenes, the Bureau scrambled. Kash Patel's office issued a statement within minutes, calling the release reckless and irresponsible. But the damage was done. Screenshots of the leaked portions began circulating online. A few names were recognizable: an entertainment mogul, a tech investor, a retired diplomat. Every corner of the internet burned with speculation. Hashtags like hashtag Massie list, hashtag Epstein files, and hashtag Patel cover-up trended simultaneously. On live television, anchors tried to appear composed, but everyone knew they were covering something historic and dangerous. Inside FBI headquarters, Patel sat alone in his office. His phone buzzed nonstop, calls from higher-ups, political allies, even journalists pretending to be friends. The words classified breach and career ending kept appearing in messages. A trusted colleague entered quietly. "They're saying you'll be placed on leave," she whispered. Patel stared blankly at his desk. For what? For not leaking something first. She hesitated, then said softly, "For being the face of it." Meanwhile, Massie gave one final statement to the press. The truth doesn't belong to agencies. It belongs to the people. If exposing it ends careers, then maybe those careers weren't built on integrity. That quote hit like lightning. Networks played it over and over. Within hours, protesters gathered outside the FBI building holding signs that read, "No more secrets, release the list, and accountability now." Patel watched it all unfold on television. The same agency that once protected him was now preparing his exit. For years, he had been the man behind the curtain, briefing politicians, shaping narratives. But now, for the first time, the curtain had been pulled back, and the entire country was staring right at him. That night, as helicopters circled the city and pundits debated his future, one undeniable truth had already emerged. The list was real, the silence was broken, and Kash Patel's career would never recover by dawn. The Bureau's headquarters in Washington, D.C. was on full lockdown. Security badges were restricted, internal communications frozen. Reporters crowded outside the main entrance, shouting questions at anyone who emerged. The once impenetrable agency now looked shaken, its windows glowing under the weight of scrutiny. Inside, Kash Patel sat in a glass-walled conference room, facing 3 internal investigators. The fluorescent lights above him hummed steadily, the kind of sound that could drive a man's patience to the edge. He hadn't slept. His tie was loose, his eyes red from exhaustion and fury. "Mr. Patel," the lead investigator said, flipping through a file, "you've been placed on administrative leave pending review of the Massie hearing, and you're handling of classified information." Patel gave a bitter laugh. "You mean pending how much political pressure you're under?" The woman across from him didn't smile. "Congressman Massie's disclosure has triggered a national security incident. The Bureau needs to control the damage." Patel leaned forward. Control the damage? Or control the narrative? The man on his left adjusted his glasses. "Your comments yesterday have compromised our ability to deny the list's existence. The director is demanding to know how it got out." Patel's tone dropped, cold and steady. "It didn't get out because of me. It got out because you all buried it and assumed no one would ever dig it up." The investigators exchanged looks. One whispered something to another, jotting notes. Patel leaned back in his chair. "You think suspending me will fix this? You're mistaken. This isn't about me anymore. It's about the rot that's been festering for years, the kind that Massie just ripped open on live television." At that same hour, across town, Thomas Massie was walking out of another press briefing. He looked exhausted but defiant. Reporters surrounded him. "Congressman, are you concerned this could lead to a national security breach?" Massie replied calmly, "If the truth threatens national security, then maybe the real threat was never the truth. It was the cover-up." The clip would air all day long. Every major outlet replayed it with bold text. "Massie defies FBI." Back inside the Bureau, Patel's phone buzzed with messages from colleagues. Some sympathetic, most terrified. One read, "They're using you as a fall guy. Everyone knows it." Another simply said, "Delete your files. Tonight." Patel ignored both. He stared at his reflection in the glass wall, a man once praised for loyalty now branded as liability. Later that evening, as he exited the building under escort, the crowd outside erupted with flash photography. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Patel, are you resigning?" He paused on the steps, surrounded by guards. The flashing lights made his eyes sting. "I dedicated my life to protecting this country," he said. "But somewhere along the line, we stopped protecting the truth. Maybe it's time someone did." He turned and walked into the black SUV waiting for him. No one noticed the faint smirk on Massie's face as he watched the footage later that night. The congressman didn't gloat, but he knew what everyone else knew now. Kash Patel's career at the Bureau was effectively over, and the Bureau itself, once seen as untouchable, had just been dragged into the light. The next morning's headline said it all: FBI in crisis. Kash Patel suspended amid Epstein file fallout. Massie's list sparks federal investigation. But inside closed offices, more names were whispered. The story wasn't done. It was only beginning by Monday morning. The country felt different. Cable networks dropped their usual programming. Headlines were dominated by 5 words. Patel resigns after Massie hearing. Kash Patel's resignation letter, submitted quietly at 2:47 a.m., leaked before sunrise. It was short, barely 2 paragraphs. "I have always served my country with honor and integrity. However, recent political developments have made it impossible for me to continue fulfilling my duties objectively. I hope that in time, the truth will matter more than perception." But the nation wasn't focused on Patel's words. They were focused on what would come next. The storm hits Washington. Outside the Capitol, protesters gather with handmade signs. Release the full list, justice for the victims, and the secrets. The air buzzed with the sound of drones filming the crowd. Even foreign media outlets broadcast the footage, calling it America's biggest political reckoning in decades. Inside, congressional leaders huddled behind closed doors. The tension was palpable. Senior officials argued over damage control, but Thomas Massie sat quietly, watching them unravel. Finally, he stood and spoke. "You all had years to do something. Years. The victims didn't stop fighting, and neither did the truth. Now the public knows, and you're panicking because your control is slipping." No one responded. His words hit too close to home. A staffer handed him a folder labeled Oversight Committee, Priority Review. Inside were subpoenas, dozens of them, targeting the Bureau, private contractors, and even a few corporate executives. The investigation was officially expanding. Massie didn't celebrate. He knew what was coming. The threats, the media smears, the whispers about career suicide. But he also knew this was bigger than politics. Patel's final stand. Meanwhile, Patel sat in his home office, blinds closed, TV muted. He hadn't left the house since the resignation. Reporters were parked outside his driveway. Helicopters hovered periodically overhead. His phone buzzed with messages. From allies urging silence, from enemies celebrating his downfall. But one text caught his attention. It came from an anonymous number. "You weren't the only one protecting them. They're coming for you next." He exhaled, staring at his reflection in the darkened window. For years, he'd been part of the system, confident, connected, untouchable. Now, he was the symbol of everything wrong with it. For the first time, he began to wonder if Massie had been right all along. The nation reacts. In living rooms across America, people debated the meaning of it all. Was Patel a scapegoat or an accomplice? Was Massie a hero or a political opportunist? Polls showed that trust in federal institutions had dropped overnight. On talk shows, analysts used words like irreversible and systemic collapse. A late-night host summed it up perfectly. "We always knew there were secrets. We just never thought we'd see someone actually open the file." Massie's final statement. That evening, Massie returned to the House floor. Cameras clicked as he stood behind the same desk where it all began. His voice was steady, not angry, not proud, just resolute. "I didn't expose this list to destroy people," he said. "I did it to destroy the idea that some people are above the law. If that ends careers, so be it. But if it restores trust, even a little, then it was worth it." He paused, looking around the chamber. "This isn't about me. It's about truth. And truth, once spoken, can't be taken back." The room was silent. Even his political rivals stayed quiet. As he left the Capitol, someone shouted from the crowd, "Massie, you started something you can't stop." He turned slightly and replied, "Good." Epilogue. The next day, the Oversight Committee officially launched what the press called the Integrity Review. Patel's name would appear in its opening statement, but not as a villain, as a warning. And across the country, something shifted. People began to demand more answers, more transparency, more honesty. For the first time in years, the words accountability and truth weren't just slogans. They were a movement. The Massie list had done what few thought possible. It forced the system to look at itself. And somewhere in the distance, under a gray Washington sky, Kash Patel watched from his window, realizing that no matter what came next, the silence that once protected the powerful was finally broken by the end of the week. The Massie list had become the most searched phrase in America. Every TV network, every talk show, every podcast was dissecting the scandal, but not everyone agreed on who the villain was. Cable news battlefield. At 8 p.m., one network aired a segment titled Thomas Massie, Hero or Headline Hunter? The anchor leaned forward dramatically. He claims transparency, but critics call it a reckless political stunt. Has Congressman Massie gone too far? Clips flashed across the screen. Massie speaking at the hearing, Patel looking cornered, protesters chanting outside the Capitol. Then came the spin. Analysts debated his motives, some calling him a patriot, others accusing him of grandstanding for attention. Meanwhile, rival networks painted a completely different picture. One host thundered, Massie did what no one else had the courage to do, confront a system that has been lying for years. Kash Patel isn't the victim here. He's the gatekeeper who got caught. Viewers were divided. One half of the country saw Massie as a truth-teller. The other half called him a dangerous disruptor. Patel breaks the silence. On Friday night, Patel finally agreed to an interview, a carefully chosen platform with a neutral journalist known for fairness. When the cameras went live, his posture was tense but controlled. Mr. Patel, the interviewer began, the country watched your exchange with Congressman Massie. Many believe you misled the public. What do you want to say to them tonight? Patel inhaled slowly, then replied, I didn't lie. I followed procedure. The Bureau doesn't release unverified data. The so-called list wasn't evidence. It was speculation. Massie turned into theater, and now people's lives are at risk. The interviewer pressed, Are you saying the names are false? Patel hesitated, just long enough for every viewer to notice. I'm saying they were never meant to be judged outside a court of law, he answered. That pause was all the internet needed. Within minutes, clips of Patel's hesitation were everywhere, captioned he knows. Memes, parodies, and edited sound bites flooded social media. One viral post read, If they weren't real, why protect them? Massie fires back. The next morning, Massie appeared on a rival morning show, looking calm, sipping coffee. Mr. Patel says you endangered lives, the host began. Massie smiled faintly. Lives or reputations? Because the people who actually lost their lives were the victims, not the powerful names he's defending. The audience clapped. The clip went viral within hours. Then came the headline from one major paper. Massie versus Patel, the war of truth. Washington reacts. Inside the Capitol, staffers were in panic mode. Public trust in federal agencies had dropped 17% in a single week, the steepest fall in decades. Senators whispered about damage containment. The FBI released a rare public statement denying any cover-up, calling Massie's revelations dangerously incomplete. But the damage was irreversible. An anonymous official leaked to the press that internal Bureau meetings were a nightmare. Agents feared being subpoenaed, and several had already requested transfers. Behind closed doors, the Bureau's director reportedly said, This isn't a storm, it's a flood, and we're all standing in it. The divide deepens. Talk shows turned the scandal into entertainment. Debates turned into shouting matches. Hashtags split the internet into two camps. Hashtag Team Massie and hashtag Stand With Patel. In one viral exchange, a popular podcaster said, Massie showed courage. Patel showed fear. That's all the public needed to see. But another influencer countered. Patel's silence doesn't prove guilt. It proves the system's broken. Everyone's fighting for power, not truth. America wasn't just watching a political story. It was living one. The hidden threat. Late that night, Patel's phone buzzed again. A private number. No message this time. Just a single file attachment. You think it's over? Look deeper. He stared at the screen, confused. The file's name read, Vault B, Index 47.pdf. Patel didn't open it. Not yet, but he knew what it meant. Someone else, somewhere inside the system, still had access to the real files. And if those were released, the storm that Massie started might just bring down the entire building. The message came just after midnight, a vibration on Patel's phone that snapped him awake. He blinked at the screen. An unknown number, no text, just a single file. Vault B, Index 47.pdf. At first, he thought it was a prank. Then he noticed the encryption tag. It wasn't random, it was bureau grade. Whoever sent it had access to something deep inside the system. Uneasy curiosity. Patel stared at the file for minutes before transferring it to a secure laptop. A warning popped up. Unauthorized document. Trace active. He disabled the network connection immediately, heart pounding. When he finally opened the file, the screen filled with a list of serial numbers, case IDs, and initials. But one line stood out.